Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to dive right into a story that, well, you won't find it printed in any newspapers, it was never debated in Parliament, and the government has never officially acknowledged it even happened. Picture this for a second. It is an incredibly dark, miserable, rainy night in an unknown enemy city. The year is 2009. The streets are completely deserted, and there's just this one white car idling in a dark alleyway. Inside, a man checks his watch. It reads exactly 2:17 a.m. His face is totally hidden in the shadows, but if you could see his eyes, you'd see this really chilling mix of absolute ice-cold calm and deep-seated terror.
Sitting in the dark, he whispers this to himself. If anything goes wrong today, my name, my identity, my country will all end right here. And this wasn't just dramatic flair. This man was Agent X. He was a highly trained field operative for India's foreign intelligence agency, RAW. For the past 5 years, he had been buried so incredibly deep undercover that he had practically forgotten his own real identity. I mean, just imagine the psychological toll of that, right? Waking up every single day knowing that just one tiny slip of the tongue literally means instant death. The guy was living his entire life on a razor's edge.
All right, let's jump into part 1, the unseen threat.
So while Agent X is sitting in that freezing car, thousands of miles away in New Delhi, the brightly lit RAW war room is practically groaning under the weight of classified files. Agent X's daily existence was a staggering dichotomy. It's almost hard to wrap your head around. On one hand, he had absolutely zero proof of his real life. No Indian passport, he relied entirely on a fake family, a fake business, a completely fake life. Forgetting your own birthday is one thing, but bearing your entire past, that takes immense, almost superhuman discipline. But his true reality? He was the tip of the spear for Project X, a field operative tasked with infiltrating a network that was planning a catastrophic attack on India. Now, the absolute crucial concept here is something called strict deniability. In that war room, senior RAW officers were dealing with a brutal reality. One officer laid it out explicitly. If this mission leaked, not only would their agent die, but their entire strategic network would completely collapse. So there were to be no written records whatsoever, zero official acknowledgement. If Agent X was somehow caught, the Indian government would completely refuse to recognize he even existed. He was entirely, 100% on his own. Let's move on to Section 2, uncovering the master plan. So, how do you even begin to unravel a threat this massive? For Agent X, it didn't start in a dramatic shootout. Actually, it started in the most unassuming place you could think of, a small, quiet cafe late at night. He's just sitting there, sipping his tea, reading the newspaper, when a guy sitting across from him, an insider within the enemy network, leans in and quietly drops this bomb. The game is changing soon. This time, not just an explosion, but an impact. That single, terrifying sentence was the very first major clue, and it instantly put Agent X on high alert. After that, Agent X quickly started realizing the staggering anatomy of this enemy network. This wasn't just your standard terror cell. No way! This was a massive, multi-layered apparatus specifically designed to completely break India's security backbone. We are talking about a terrifyingly organized syndicate. It's like a giant puzzle made up of ground-level operatives, high-rolling financial backers, incredibly sophisticated weapons suppliers, and, most dangerously, high-level hidden faces who are pulling all the strings from the shadows. Recognizing just how immense this threat was, Agent X manages to send an urgent coded message back to New Delhi. And honestly, this is just a brilliant example of high-level tradecraft. He disguised an encrypted code deep inside a totally mundane business report. When they decoded the message back home, it was simple but absolutely chilling. We are running out of time. This transmission really pushed RAW to elevate the mission to their absolute highest priority. They knew they had to get to the root of the plan and break it from the inside out, without making a single sound. Okay, Section 3, the risky double game. As the paranoia on the ground was growing, RAW realized that merely sitting back and observing just wasn't going to cut it anymore. Back in New Delhi, they called an emergency meeting to finalize their escalation tactics, and the debate in that room was intense. Do they pull him out and save his life, or push him even deeper? Ultimately, the RAW chief made a massive, high-stakes decision. No half measures. They decided to completely flip the script, risking a full decade of covert work to prevent this catastrophic attack. Agent X was ordered to shift from a passive observer to an active player. He had to penetrate the inner circle. To do that, Agent X had to execute a wildly dangerous move to win the enemy's trust. He had to provide the bait. So he gives them a controlled leak, fake but incredibly believable intelligence regarding highly sensitive Indian systems. And you know what? It worked perfectly. The network seniors were super impressed, thinking he was way more useful than they originally thought. But by doing this, he plunged himself directly into the core of the enemy's game. There was no going back now. The payoff for taking that insane risk was immediate, but also terrifying. A few weeks later, he gets called to a secure location, and they show him a digital map. On this map are the names of several major Indian cities, and they are heavily marked with red circles. This was a multi-layered, fully planned logistical nightmare. Agent X commits the entire thing to memory and fires off another frantic, high-risk coded transmission. They are ready. Multiple targets. Time is near. The countdown had officially begun. Which brings us to Section 4, Surviving Enemy's Suspicion.
You know, in the dark world of espionage, the greatest enemy isn't a gun. It's suspicion. The psychological terror of being hunted from within your own circle is truly claustrophobic. Agent X started noticing the little signs, two familiar faces constantly appearing behind him on the street, suddenly finding himself excluded from key meetings. But the absolute most terrifying realization came when he walked back into his supposedly secure safe house. He notices the angle of his desk is slightly altered. A chair has been nudged. His closet door is left just barely open. The message was crystal clear. His room had been searched. He was officially a prime suspect.
The very next morning, he gets summoned to a small, windowless room, guarded by heavily armed men. A sharp-eyed senior network member slides a file across the table. It's a detailed report of Agent X's movements over the past few months. The guy looks dead at him and asks, "Who are you?" Now, knowing that a single wrong word meant a bullet to the head, Agent X just calmly replies, "I am who you want me to be, and the most dangerous for your enemies." The senior man laughed, but let me tell you, his eyes were entirely devoid of warmth. And to really drive the point home, the enemy didn't just stop at questions. They utilized brutal psychological warfare. That very same night, another network member who had been accused of playing a double game was captured and executed right in front of Agent X. The senior member just turns to him and says, "This is what happens to those who can't be trusted." See, this is why tradecraft matters so much. It's not movie magic, it's surviving brutal psychological torture where even the slightest flinch gives you away. It was a clear-cut warning. Next could be you. His time was rapidly running out. Let's get into the final chapter, Section 5, the final counterstrike.
At this point, the pace of the operation rapidly accelerated. Back in New Delhi, the war room was preparing one sweeping, synchronized move to take the whole network down. But they needed the mastermind's identity first. Knowing this could very well be his absolute last action, Agent X walks into a crowded public space to mask his movements. He uses a burner, an old-school phone, to evade digital tracking and sends his final coded message. Mastermind identified. Final phase starting. Move now. The very second that message said sent, he literally smashes the device to pieces on the ground. And good thing he did, because the moment he destroyed that phone, two men closed in on him. But he didn't run. Instead, he wove through these narrow, dense alleys as the footsteps behind him grew louder and louder. Just as they're about to corner him, a miraculous stroke of luck, he hits a local police checkpoint. His pursuers vanished into the crowd. He'd escaped for now, but he knew for sure his luck had just run out. A few days later, he walked into his final test, a highly secure, closed-door meeting where he was stripped of all mobile devices. Inside that heavily guarded room, he finally lays eyes on the man known only as the silent boss, the true mastermind behind this entire plot. Agent X was totally trapped in the belly of the beast, having played his final card. And it leaves us with this massive lingering question. Would Ra's sweeping counterstrike happen in time, or was it already way too late to stop a system-breaking attack? Think about it. A man without a name, caught right between the enemy's final play and his country's full might. It's just a fascinating look into the immense, unseen sacrifices made in the shadows every single day. So the next time you feel secure walking around your city, remember the silent operators who likely gave up absolutely everything to make it that way. Thanks for joining me for this explainer today, and always keep questioning what happens behind closed doors.